Anatomical failure. This is an important concept. You're going to be explaining this in how injuries occur, and energy, and low impact soft tissue injuries. So energy comes in, X amount of energy. Now, if there's nothing to resist it, there's no resistance with active range of motion. There's no resistance with passive range of motion. There's no resistance with paralogical joint space motion. In other words, there was no energy absorption in any of those. How much of the energy now is going into anatomical failure? All of it. That's why when your joints are locked out, you have more of an injury. That's called an injury magnifier. That's why it's a worse injury when the joints are locked out, because all that injury immediately bypassed. It bypassed active range of motion, passive range of motion, went right into the paraphysiological joint space and anatomical failure.
I'm losing some of that.
Okay. Okay, here's my head. I got active range of motion. My joints aren't locked out, right? Okay. Now I turn my head. You see how my joints are locked out. Let's say I'm looking over my shoulder. My joints are locked out, okay? I get hit from behind, okay? Let's do a comparison. One person who's looking, who is not turned, and then one person who is. Let's do a comparison. So same amount of energy comes in, no other variables, okay?
Okay, so energy is the impact.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I was.
Force, yeah, okay. So, same force, no other variables. There are other variables, I'm just trying to get this. So, this person, joints are locked out. There's no more active range of motion, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, over here there is. I can still, there's energy to be absorbed in active range of motion. Which means, is it going to increase or decrease? As the energy is absorbed, it'll lessen the injury when it gets to anatomical failure, right? Okay? This is what magnifies injuries, especially low impact injuries. So over here, I get hit. There's no active range of motion to absorb that energy. There's no passive. The real only energy absorption was in the paraphysiological joint space. You guys know the paraphysiological joint space, right? That's this. That's the popping. That's the paraphysiological. That's joint motion. Paraphysiological. Okay. Okay. So that will absorb some, but not a whole lot, right? You'll quickly, very quickly go to paraphysiological joint space anatomical damage. Quickly. There's not much margin there. So I wasn't able to absorb any of the energy with my active range of motion or passive. So more of that energy was transferred it went right into the paraphysiological joint space, which is a very narrow window, and right into anatomical failure. Whereas if I'm standing here, I get hit, there's a certain amount of energy that's going to be absorbed, that's going to take me through my active range of motion. Then there's going to be a certain, when I go past active, that's going to be absorbed and lessened when I go into passive overpressure, right? That's going to absorb energy. You can see that, right? Okay. No anatomy damage up to this point, right? Right. Then after passive overpressure, then I'm into the joint motion, paraphysiological. Still no damage, right? And then whatever energy is left goes into anatomical failure. That's why, under the exact same circumstances, somebody with their head turned that gets hit from behind, that's called an injury magnifier. That's why that injury will be worse than the person who was looking straight ahead. You guys know this from a clinical standpoint. You see this all the time, right? That's why. So, anatomical failure. You do need to know the basics to be able to explain how these injuries occur, especially when we talk about a low impact injury and defending it. When we go into defending the low impact injury and the injury magnifiers, well, what are the three biggest injury magnifiers? Well, that's one of them. I got my joints locked out, so the energy is going to go more into anatomical failure. That's the one big one. Second big one is the whiplash. Why is that a big one? It accelerates up to threefold. The G-forces are accelerated to threefold with a whiplash. That's an injury magnifier. That's why the headrests stop whiplash. Okay? If the headrests stop, they're not going to have as much of a whiplash injury. They'll have a concussion. It transfers where the energy goes. So the three big injury magnifiers are joints locked out, whiplash, in the neck whiplash, and did they know they were going to get hit? Well, if I know I'm going to get hit, do I tense up? If I tense up, am I going to be absorbing the energy more and dissipating it before anatomical failure? Yes. If I don't tense up, if I'm just standing here, wham! There's no tensile force. Are you with me? For me to absorb that energy, to lessen it into anatomical failure. There still may be. I may be tense, so I might be strained or something like that. But I'm talking about ligamentous anatomical failure, things like that. So those are the three injury magnifiers. So you do need to know anatomical failure, the three stages of anatomical failure and the absorption of energy. You do need to know that. It's as we go along, that's going to play out more. But it becomes especially important when you're documenting, when you're talking about how this low impact injury is greater than what it is, or you're defending it. And they're trying to say, well, this was just a small injury. Oh, by the way, their neck was turned, they weren't paying attention, and it was a whiplash injury. That's only 3 injury magnifiers. There's 8. We'll cover them.